Things are going to start happening to me now.
You've done all the reading. You're a scholar. You're a professor. You've done all the reading. You've done the intellectual heavy lifting.
More or less, eat shit and die.
You wouldn't know a fact if it begged you all night long.
Want to give the wrong impression, because I am very high.
Fucking right up behind him with a hatchet. Smash, smash, smash. Yeah.
Care. I'm a libertarian. What I'm getting is,
did you vote for Joe Jorgensen or Trump?
Who?
Joe Jorgensen. That was the perfect answer. Thank you.
It's a crazy night. Welcome, everybody. Libertarian Podcast Review. This is Tyler Yonke, and this is I said it was part deux, and it's for a reason, which is we were supposed to have, I think we talked about this on Andrew's side. So if you didn't see that, go check it out on Andrew's side, Legal Mindset. But he was supposed to come on the show a year ago. It was almost to the date, and it was all set, ready to go. And then he's like, I'm having internet trouble. And I think really what he did, he checked out the show and he said, I don't think I want to be a part of this. And then all of a sudden, I just get a X DM from him, like, sure, let's do this. And I'm like, this is a year later. I'm in a world of, I don't know what happened here, but let's welcome to the stage, Legal Mindset, Andrew Esquire. That is his real name, first and last, I believe. Andrew, welcome.
Yes, it is my legal name. What's up, Tyler? Appreciate being here. 1 year later, we made it, baby. We're on time. We're on time.
Good times. Maybe this will be a little more jovial on this side. People go check the other one out, of course, with Andrew. And by the way, big props to you for setting this up. I really appreciate it. So people like my show, subscribe, and you'll probably be turned off on some of it, and you may like some of it else. But I owe you big for this, so I appreciate it.
No. Look, I'm always happy to help people out, and I spend a lot of time researching on my channel and doing and I'm sure you do the exact same thing, and you're practicing, right? So you're practicing, and then on top of that, you're preparing at least a little bit for your shows, right? Getting them together, you got to make a thumbnail, you got to get everything together. It takes time, right? And I am picky on who I go with, the podcast I go with, but this is one I have wanted to get on for a while. But I do wait for, hey, do we have good things to talk about? Do we have great topics to talk about? Because there's one thing to just come on and say, hey, what's up? Yeah, you're cool. I'm cool, right? We're good. Versus when you have really good stuff. And it happens that right now we're at the nexus. We talked about Rekieta on my channel, and you've been talking about that a lot. But we've got SCOTUS too, which has some massive decisions which in my opinion, expand liberty greatly. We'll get into those today.
Excellent. So a few things. One, for my audience, the few that are here. And by the way, I'm not monetized. I don't do super chats. So bummer on that case.
Like the video, guys. Like the video. That'll help.
And I screwed up and didn't set the Rumble. Otherwise, you could at least throw some money my way there. So screwing up all the way around.
Well, I also think you don't have it enabled to allow people to redirect to you. You have to allow people to redirect you. So I don't think that's why the auto redirect didn't work. But luckily, my mod got it taken care of. So
hey, and you know what's sad? I produce a show besides this one. So, but we're a bunch of losers. So let's not get into that. Tell everybody about yourself and whatever you need to say.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Andrew. I'm a Florida attorney. I'm still a Florida attorney, still barred in Florida. Before that, actually, I was a master's in public administration. I was an assistant city and county manager in North Carolina for a while. I was almost a pastor at one point when I was younger. My undergrad was actually poli-sci religious studies. But I ended up doing property law and corporate law, really, representing Universal Studios, as well as representing a bunch of special districts in Central Florida, like Celebration, Reunion, Bonnet Creek, a lot of other special districts. That became my specialty. It was a weird specialty. And I thought I would never really use that. Ended up getting on YouTube because I had a lot of friends who were YouTubers. And I said, you know what? I can do this shit. If these dum-dums can do it, I can do it too. Right? So I got on YouTube, started covering stuff. I did make a big break covering the pandemic at first, and then I started covering Rittenhouse, right? So I got big on TikTok, which was weird, 250,000 people on TikTok, covering the pandemic, right? Because many people agree with me on that.
What is your stance?
Well, I was against it from the beginning, right? Okay. And what I saw was people like Legal and were the representation of lawyers on the internet. And they were coming out here supporting the lockdown, supporting everything, supporting the insanity, right? So I came on to say F that, which has, by the way, now been completely vindicated.
Yes.
There was even just the other day, I saw there was an $800,000 judgment for a Tennessee woman who was fired because of her vaccine hesitancy, just because she wanted to exert her right to say no, right? So anyways, stayed on with that, got bigger in Rittenhouse, Johnny Depp hit, Disney hit, then VTubing hit, and I've gone down this rabbit hole, right? And I'm over here in Asia. Since the beginning, almost the beginning of my channel, I was in Miami for a bit, but I moved to Korea. After Korea, been in Thailand, Manila. I've spent some time in Singapore, Japan, a lot of time. So I'm over here in Asia, like kind of living the life, being kind of free and happy. But I've really enjoyed my kind of YouTube journey. But liberty is at the core of what I do care about. It's one of my fundamental values, especially personal liberty, right? Because in my view, you can't control the government, right? You can have opinions on it. You can take actions which may in the cumulative, along with other people's actions, have a net effect, but I can control better my own personal liberty. So in my life, I try to maximize my personal liberty. I do active things to make sure that I am as free of an individual as possible. Stuff like being able to do whatever I want during a day, right? Being able to turn the stream off if I want and have a day where I just go out and stare at the fucking sunset. If I want to do anything, I want to do it. That's what I care about. That's one of my priorities, my life goals. So, that's why I think anytime people are talking about liberty interests, it resonates on a personal level with me. Yeah, that's about it.
I didn't watch the whole legal YouTube. I don't know what you want to call it, LawTube. I don't know which part you're.
It became LawTube, but yeah, sure.
I know there's.
Have
I
you
don't
heard
know
of
all the
Legal?
lingo.
Have you heard of Legal?
I've heard, and so this is what I first got into. As a matter of fact, it was you. It was the clip with Rittenhouse, where you're like, everyone's screaming. Someone sent me that, and then
that's it. It's over.
Yeah, that was the clip, and then I watched the rest of that, and I was fascinated. The Johnny Depps and others as I could, and I've really enjoyed it because there's what's crazy is I don't know if you good old TV show Friends, Rachel. She's at the hospital. You probably remember the TV show, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So now listen, I'm no Friends stan here. I'm not no person who's like watching Friends every single day. But yes, I know what Friends is. I grew up in the 90s. Like, come on.
Okay, just check it. I'm older. So I think one of the on the cast, Phoebe, is having a baby. I think is what it is. And Rachel's at the hospital and she's flirting with the doctor. He's an OBGYN, and he's like, "You're single?" or she says that to him, and he's like, "Yeah." And she goes, "I don't understand." And he goes, "Well, what do you do for a living?" She's like, I serve coffee." And he's like, "Okay, you serve coffee. So you go to your work, you serve coffee, you come home, you just don't feel like you want to have another cup of coffee." So I don't know what I had a point of the story other than repetitive. We get bored with stuff. So anyway, let's move on. That went over like a hot lead of bricks. Okay, so I'm not gonna be able to control the chat on over here because, but I did want to put this one here. This person said the mandates is why Chevron needed to be overturned.
Yes,
and explain to them. I totally agree, and people may not remember, but explain to them why.
Well, it is. First of all, it is overturned, right? We have the new Loper Bright Enterprises v. Raimondo, Secretary of Commerce. So it is overturned. Thank the Lord, right? So the reason why it needs to be overturned is because there was deference under Chevron. The Chevron principle was to give deference when any interpretation is ambiguous, to give deference to the administrative agency as long as it's reasonable. And once again, reasonable is a broad truck. You can drive pretty much anything through the scope of reasonableness, particularly under Chevron. So much deference was given to the interpretations of these agencies saying, well, this is the science. This is what it is. And this is what it is because we say so, right? That is what was given. Now, mind you, these are administrations. Now, yes, at the very top of the administration, right, they may be replaced president to president. But oftentimes the president may have some pushback on that as well. But the people within that organization, particularly the people making the decisions, the people researching the policy, those people are often in there for decades. They are like stalactites, right? on the side of these organizations. And they often will have agendas. They'll often want to exert control. We saw during the pandemic that people who were in public health, something that was wildly overlooked. I knew somebody from my childhood who's in the public health department in Broward County. They were doing stuff, Tyler, on like, you should eat apples, you know, and like people fucking ignored that shit. Like nobody gave a fuck about that. But all of a sudden they're told your department is now the most important thing ever, and you have power to write these public health orders. These people went fucking wild because this was the first time in their life they had power, and they were drunk with it. And so they overreached to the point where they were destroying jobs. They were destroying businesses. I was doing compliance at the time for a very large Fortune 500 company, and they were making it impossible for us to do business. Even if we did everything they wanted, the cost of it was so prohibitive. It was absolutely destroying people's lives. It was destroying businesses. It was absolutely fucking nuts. And that was because Chevron, because when an administration, right, says, when an agency says, hey, this is what it is, you've got to defer. And that was at peak ridiculousness during the pandemic. Now we got saved during the pandemic by that, that was OSHA. Right? By the OSHA mandate being stopped by a fucking hair, and only for the broader general industrial complex, not for the medical industry, where it was actually ruled that they could mandate that. Right? So this is an actual check. So what we have now in the Loper Bright Enterprises decision, which I'll copy this into the private chat, like if you want to pull it up. But what it says in the, in just the holding is that courts are now required to exercise independent judgment. That's the key right there. Courts must exercise independent judgment in the holding. The APA, right, requires that courts exercise their independent judgment in deciding whether or not a statute is whether or not agency acted within its authority. This is massive. This is huge. And this is going to overturn so many decisions. This is going to lead to a wellspring of stuff that we've never looked at because it's fucking ridiculous being actually considered, right? This is going to be the best thing for liberty in terms of personal liberty, business liberty in a while. Now, yes, businesses have more capacity to bring these claims than individuals, but that doesn't mean that some of these things don't apply to individuals and restrict individual liberty. I think this thing is going to be massive for the United States. I think it's a huge win for individual liberty, and I'm just fucking psyched about this. I mean, this is something that if you're not a law nerd, you may not get it, but this is really, really huge, guys.
Is there anything you want to scroll through and find out specifically, or maybe I should give you the ability to?
I've read all of this.
Okay.
I mean, essentially, it's just pointing out, hey, the ridiculousness of Chevron and how that was never the intention for it to be giving that broad level of discretion, right? And also that Congress at some point has to go back and clarify shit. I mean, that's the thing that really pisses me off, Tyler, is that they've allowed these administrations, these administrative agencies to do everything because Congress doesn't do shit. And Congress has been able to sit on their ass and do nothing, literally nothing. And by the way, this applies to Republicans and to fucking Democrats, both of these fucking cucks. Right? Sorry, I get worked up with it, but they do nothing. They do nothing. They produce nothing of value. Right? They just sit there and say, okay, agency, you do this. Now the D's are in charge. So now we're going to execute this in a democratic fashion, right? Well, that's not what was intended. What was intended is if Congress wants a agency to do something, specifically tell them to do it. Specifically say to do it. And you know what? Now you, congressmen, are liable to the voter. You are not liable to the voter, but they don't want to be liable to the voters. They want to hide behind their decisions. Republicans want to pass stuff that's really going to end up being applied in a very liberal, very socialist way. And by the way, it works the other way. Sometimes Democrats will pass stuff that'll be applied in a conservative way, usually in a local context, right? In the local context, it'll be applied in a conservative way or a benefit a conservative district, et cetera, et cetera. But that they don't want to work. They don't want to do their job. And this is a way to get them to be accountable as well. So that's the two sides where it's going to be good. Liberty up and congressional responsibility. If Congress wants to do something, they're going to need to come out and actually do it. That's good.
So when Gorsuch was nominated or rumored to be, the big thing on him was Chevron deference, he was administrative stuff, he was very much against it. So this has been in the pipeline, I think. And then Dwayne Mansell says ATF will have to back off forced reset triggers also, perhaps. But the bump stock kind of, to me, it made me feel, because it's the same idea. How is Chevron deference not part of that case? Because it's really the same idea, which is Trump makes a rule. The ATF has been ruling on this, machine gun rule since 1934 or something like that, that these are okay. The bump stocks, suddenly they're not. So, Thomas says, hey, go write a law about it. But it seemed like it's all kind of that administrative, we're going to strip that back. How do you see the people freaking out online? And do they have any good arguments for any of this?
I honestly, I haven't seen anybody arguing for Chevron other than, oh my God, this is something like the typical mainstream media positions of, oh, this is a far right thing. This is a right wing thing, which once again, I fucking hate, because this is about liberty, not necessarily about right or left wing, because by the way, some people on the right don't want liberty as a thing. They want state authoritarianism. They just want it with a right wing bent, right? They want it like state authoritarianism with a cross on it, right? I'm not a fan of that either, by the way. I'm a fan of actual liberty, right? So in that case, right, I think the mainstream media has just kind of spouted out, oh, this is something coming from the conservative justices. They try to paint the court as clear right and left, when, by the way, it isn't. And many of those justices that voted 6-3, right, they're actually kind of statists, right? If we get into the vote and break down that vote, other than the three liberal justices, if you look at Roberts, for example, Roberts has voted with the state. He's been pro-state in many decisions, right? So to say that this guy is super far right, no, he's also sided with the liberal justices multiple times as well. So I think it's disingenuous, right, in the presentation. And that's been the biggest problem I have seen with the presentation and the reaction to this. Is just being disingenuous about, the politics of the court, which I think is a liberal thing, because I do think that if Biden could pack the court and get away with it, I think he might take a shot at it.
Yeah, what's your feeling on it, if that's even a plausibility at this point? I mean,
I honestly,
it depends on the elections, I guess.
Tyler, if this happened a year or two ago, he would have packed the fucking court. If this happened in 2022, he would have packed the court. And I think they dropped this now is it's not coincidental that this stuff is coming down the pike during the election season, because he can't touch it, right? If he goes to pack the court, I mean, his numbers are already fucked, but he's really fucked, and his successor would be fucked too, right? Because that would be put on the Democratic Party, right? And I don't think he could, by the way. I don't think that would that would pass muster to try to do it right now. I don't think he's got the votes. So I think it's something that would have been on the table if they dropped this before. Because remember, they were already angry about the abortion thing, right?
Right.
They were already angry about that, and they really would if they could, I think. But now it's looking like the polling is favoring Trump, right? Especially after the last debate. So, you've got that going down. You've got his immunity, right? Which is another thing we got to talk about with SCOTUS, right? With presidential immunity under Trump versus the United States, right? So
let me ask you this. Which cases do you want to kind of look over? Because here, let me just throw the Chevron deference. We could go into January 6th, SEC, homelessness, the grants pass.
SEC one. See, you know more than me. I haven't had a chance to catch up on all of them.
This one, I haven't looked at all these too either. So you're like, hey, we're going to talk SCOTUS. And I'm like, I was going to look at some of these. This is where the Securities and Exchange Commission seeks civil penalty. Oh yeah. That's where they said, you can't just have a civil penalty. You've got to actually have a jury trial. If you don't want to go with that one, I'm not know much more than that as well.
Let's pass on that one.
Okay. Grants pass, the homeless one, Missouri v. Biden, Trump v. U.S., whichever one you want to take on.
Trump v. U.S. This one, obviously, we're already talking about it. We're already in on it.
Let's do it.
And then if you want to go on Jan 6, I know I haven't read the full decision, but I've read the holding and kind of the basics there. And we can talk about that, just because that one feels like the J6 case feels like a catharsis, right?
Yes.
Because it's kind of something we all knew was bullshit. And we're finally able to say, no, like really, really, this is bullshit. Like in terms of the legal charges that were brought against some people that were just completely bunk.
Let me ask you this. you're in law school. This case comes up. Do you even go to Sarbanes-Oxley for writing your fact pattern to? I mean, it's one of those that one kid seemed to do, and they tried it and they got it. That was what was odd to me. That it even was plausible to use this Enron age era old, official business, and then that Amy Coney Barrett sides with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Amy Coney Barrett. Right. I mean, that's another one, right? With Roberts, right? That she is not like, if you look at her voting record, right? She is not somebody who just votes right with the right wing, left wing, right? She'll go over and she'll go over with those liberal justices, right? Those, the lady squad, and she'll go over there and vote on it. So, I mean, I do keep an eye on that. I mean, do you do the same thing? Like keep an eye on like justices and like how they vote individually? Because I typically, that to me is more telling. Like, okay, this is within, once again, getting away from this right-left paradigm. Is this within Thomas's judicial philosophy? Is this within Gorsuch, within, whoever, Sotomayor, whatever? Like, how is their particular judicial philosophy going to play out here? And I think that tends to work out a lot better. Now, there is something to some of these political cases where I think they had to go a certain way. I do think the immunity case going this way, and I know I'm jumping cases here, but this just tied together, but both Jan 6 and the immunity, I think it goes better towards healing of the nation, right? I don't think that prosecuting Trump is, even if you're a Democrat, like, and if you just get off of the mainstream networks, it's not going to help the nation for Trump to be prosecuted unjustly or in a way that's perceived as this politically motivated and this politically biased, and particularly on almost all the cases, even the civil cases, other cases, flimsy charges, flimsy facts. It's not helping you, right? It's going to help to move on past that and to, let's go into the substance of the arguments. Let's go into whether or not you believe this person should be president or not. And look, there's things you can disagree with Trump over very validly, right? And that's going to be much more persuasive to a voter than trying to lock him up on some bullshit charges, right? Which the immunity has now said, hey, yeah, that's not going to happen. Now, by the way, that's immunity for official acts, right? One of the big things people are saying, well, isn't that going to protect Biden? Well, maybe or maybe not, because depends on what was going on, what acts are looking at. If they're looking at things that were unofficial acts, there's stuff out there that is still within that scope. And by the way, same for Trump, right? Anything that Trump did that is not an official act could also be under the purview of, criminal or civil, liability.
Did you, when the immunity one came down, did you just feel like, okay, this is just codifying what everyone just kind of feels? I mean, that's the way I was. I was like, yeah, this just feels kind of like, and it wasn't a freak out because it hasn't
and it
been
should
used.
be that way. It should be that way. Like, and look, I would apply this to future presidents as well, even Democrats, guys, even Democrats. I would apply this equally on both sides of the aisle. It's an official act of the president, because otherwise you've hamstrung the role of the president, right? I mean, there's things that, like, every single time there's going to be a president coming in and out, you're going to have a criminal trial against the previous president. By the way, that's what happens in a lot of third world countries. I don't know if you guys know this, but this is something that does happen in a lot of banana republic-like third world countries, where essentially every time one party goes out, the other party leader is thrown in jail or is put under house arrest, right? That is some real shit where we don't want to go down that aisle. And we were headed down that way and people were cheering for it. Right. And that is absolutely not what our system is supposed to be. It's supposed to be, a shining beacon on the hill, not the fucking mud pit. Right. And it was looking like a mosh pit at a Slipknot concert. Right. This thing was looking really nasty. And I think it helps us rise above it. I mean, Cup of Nudes says in the chat, what would prosecuting him do for the nation? Yeah. It did nothing for us. Right. Lock him up. That doesn't change a damn thing. And by the way, he can still be elected as president. Right. The most deranged thing that he can still be elected as president from a jail cell. So what did this do other than give you clicks and attention and, for the CNNs of the world, for everyone else that their entire revenue depends on Trump, right? It kept them going for a while, right? The TDS, the Trump Derangement Syndrome, it fed that. That's about it, right? That's about all it did.
I mentioned on your show that I grew up Republican. still have a lot of that kind of feeling. But when Clinton was being, the Starr report, I was engulfed in that, and it was salacious. And I was just, how could you not? Now we got him. Well, it didn't change people. I mean, it just made people dig in more. And so, you do have this thing called impeachment, which still seems to, they just reiterated impeachment still out there. Let's try that if the case. And it seems like we just talked about the best interest of the child standard, which kind of is official acts.
Yes.
Yeah. So it still feels like that's kind of the standard of official acts is kind of the same. How do we get there? We're going to have it. Well, you know what? Then courts are going to have to do their work on this. And so what do you think is going to happen with the existing cases now that this ruling has come down? I don't know if you've followed the Georgia, the documents case, the New York.
I have
stuff.
not actually. So I have not, and I give a big shout out to Robert Gouveia and some of the folks that have covered this much better. I mean, Robert's been covering it for a while, and he's such a good voice on Trump, and he's been with it from the beginning, right? So I give him a special shout out. Also, he stays above a lot of the petty drama stuff, so I do appreciate him. And look, I think it's going to clearly affect some of those other cases. Now, obviously, Trump has civil cases out there, right, that are not going to be affected by this, right? Because they're, for example, I think he's appealing the Bloomingdale's bathroom one or whatever the fuck it was.
The rape case one?
Whatever it was, SA case, whatever the hell it was. I think he's appealing that one, right? And obviously, that's not an official act of a president, right? But that's one's not going to be affected. But Georgia will, right? So, to me, I think this flows down the hill, and at the very least, this is going to kick those cases, I think, down the road for at least until the election, in my opinion.
What about when this all kicked off? My thought was, well, the Republicans are feckless. They can't do much. But what if they started prosecuting in the same vein, and it's almost like a mutually assured destruction? Because I'm in an agreement where the part of the ruling and I think Sotomayor said, presidents are not above the law. And I'm like, who's not living in reality? That's not, they've always, let's be honest here. That's not, the ruling class does have a semblance of that. And I get for our country I'm not a fan of all this, but it's the reality of the case. I don't know what you feel about mutually assured destruction of you go after Biden, you go after Trump, and it's just the worst case, or do you hopefully this maybe resolve some of that?
Yeah, I think that this resolves some of it because look, I foresaw this as being the reality, right? So we get into this pattern of tit for tat, right? So Trump comes in and now Biden's on trial, right? And now his official action on trial, right? And then Trump goes out because this is second term, so he can't run again, right? Whoever else comes in, maybe Trump's back on trial or maybe somebody else is on trial. And it's just a pattern that does not stop, right? I do think this has the ability to stop this, right? To firewall this and say, no, this was something we thought we were going to go down this road and we're not. And by the skin of the Supreme Court, right? Because mind you, the Trump versus United States case at the lower court level, they ruled against Trump, right? So this, but for SCOTUS, if SCOTUS declined review on this, which frankly they needed to take this case, but if they did decline review on it, we would be in a whole different world, right? And when does tit for tat stop? Never. It continues forever. Because you feel like you are obligated to go there. It's like mutually assured destruction, right? And brinksmanship. Well, you nuked me, I got to nuke you back, right? There's no, you go down that road and the road doesn't stop. So you do have to be very, very careful about that.
How do you feel about, you made to mention that some of these cases are what you think is maybe expanding freedom. Did you look at the Rahimi case at all?
Rahimi, yes, I have looked at the Rahimi case. It's been a while. Oh, God. So that case is the gun case, yeah? Yes. So the Second Amendment, let me just refresh my memory here real quick. Or unless you want to.
I can refresh your memory. I did a whole show on the oral arguments, basically, in the pleadings of this case. So, because I had watched a video, and this happens with libertarians, which they go on and they make comments, and then it just didn't seem right, which was, they talked about domestic violence restraining order, and that this is one of those where he never had due process. He never even it was Randy Weaver, that wasn't in court. And I go, that doesn't seem right. So I looked at it and it wasn't. Now this guy's a complete Yahoo and was firing his gun, had a domestic violence restrainer. I don't quite get, I don't practice in Texas. The DA brought the DVRO against him. So it could have been a criminal one. He pleads to it. He signs it over. And here's my problem, Andrew, with
Rahimi.
Rahimi. And then he goes and has a gun. And now Bruin says you've got to have a different standard for guns. And it was a federal statute that had taken his gun and enhanced. Basically, it was an enhancement for his sentencing. So that's why they came in and they said, does Bruin really work with this? So they rearranged Bruin. However, the question is, domestic violence restraining orders, civil, standard of proof for those is just beyond a reason. Now it's not clear and convincing, but beyond a preponderance of the evidence. That's what it is.
Preponderance of evidence, yeah.
And then you get that adjudication and they take your gun away. So you essentially have your First Amendment rights taken away by a beyond the preponderance of the evidence. Cleared, yeah. It's been a long day, Andrew. I spent all long day in court.
I know.
So
and then you got to deal with me in the chat. It's a lot.
So what do you think about losing your gun rights due to a very low standard? And they talked about that a little bit.
I am so violently against this. I've been the biggest proponent. By the way, I think the thing is with overall, this is zooming out 30,000 foot, right? Is that the anti-2A people have lost the direct battle against the 2A.
By the way, Second Amendment. Yes, thank you.
The Second Amendment, gun Second Amendment, right? So, pew pew. They've lost the frontal assault. They can't win. They cannot win through a direct confrontation. They've lost. However, they've discovered the more powerful thing is to attack it from the side and behind indirectly and attack it in ways that they can even get conservatives to buy onto. Like, oh, well, you're just a fine conservative. We got to protect the ladies because the gentleman protects the ladies. And, therefore we got to have these red flag laws to protect the women and the children, because without that, we won't be able to protect them. Well, turns out that in a lot of these laws, right, and the orders where you can take away someone's firearms, you don't even have to be there. They can be ex parte hearings to take away your firearms, and the judges have no limit on the amount of time they can do that. They can do that indefinitely with pretty much no oversight, saying, hey, I'm going to restrict your guns. I'm going to take this away with no oversight, no check, no balance. And what I'm saying is there needs to be a balance to that. Yes, I get, okay, maybe at some point you should be able to do that, right? Maybe, yes, there is some sort of interest, if you want to try to argue that. Okay, fine. I don't think so, but let's say you want to argue about safety or whatever else. But there needs to be strong checks on that in line with the Second Amendment, and there aren't. And all these types of laws do not have these same sort of checks. So in terms of restrictions on the Second Amendment, I think this is the way the attack is coming. I think it's coming through these sorts of laws. So I don't like them as a whole. That said, like you mentioned, and I looked at the case facts here, behind the scenes for Rahimi. Yeah, he's not a great representation, right? He's not a great character.
That often happens. Let me push back a little, because maybe it's just different. Okay, California, even if it's a gun, you can do a gun register, like a red flag law, or domestic violence restraining order. Yes, you file that as an ex parte. You just on the pleadings, the judge makes a ruling.
Yes,
but they set a hearing date. You have your time, 21 days, so you do get your day in court. And I'll just throw it out here how
eventually.
It works.
Yes.
Yeah, so they can take your guns immediately, and it is a problem. So you have a DVRO. I've had this. Wife puts it against the husband. He's an officer, a law enforcement officer. He has to turn in his guns. Now he's sitting at the desk. That is a very serious implication. So we set it for trial. It's now 6 months out. He does get his day in court, but in our case we won. But and then he gets his guns back at some later date. So there is a process there, and I just want to say, because some people go, it's an ex parte and his guns are gone and he never got his day in court. Well, that yes and no. I get where you're at, but yes and no.
Okay, fair enough. That like in some states during certain process you get, and I would assume that there's a day in court at some point, right? But that said, I do think, look, I think the interest is strong enough that there shouldn't have to be an ex parte hearing. I think you should have to bring the party in the first place before you restrict that right, because it's a fundamental right. Sorry, right? That's a standard I think I think it's fair. That said, right, with Rahimi, right, it does create a weird situation with Brune, right, and they're trying to floss that. I know they call it a refining or whatever. It does create a weird fruit. I almost want to say it's a conflict, right? But that's of course what we get with the Supreme Court. They giveth and they taketh, and this is one where I had an inkling it might go this way. But it was kind of confirmed. Of course, this isn't the only case. There's other cases that are going to come up the pike. I believe there's one more red flag case that's coming up the pike. So they're going to have a chance to refine this once again under a different factual circumstance.
So here's my my judicial issue, and you maybe have never heard this argument before, but it's one that and once again, is it going to happen? Maybe. We're seeing some breakdowns here. It's the incorporation doctrine of the 14th Amendment, which I believe, one, it never was supposed to be done. And then if people need a little brief overview, I can give it real quick. But the idea, okay, here it is real quick. A civil war happens. The North obviously wins. They're going to then pass the Civil Rights Act of 1866. They do, and it's a lot of the same things that the 14th Amendment has. However, the South states, like 13 or 14, weren't even involved in the process. So the president vetoes it, but they override it. And then they're like, this may not work, so let's do the 14th Amendment. So they passed the 14th Amendment. Similar, whether it's ratified or not, doesn't matter. The point is, 14th Amendment is now in effect. Slaughterhouse cases affirm that all the amendments were never meant to apply to the states, okay? You have Baltimore v. Bruin, same idea. Now they've incorporated those. And what that means is you have the Second Amendment is out there for the states. The states aren't. The First Amendment, all of them, they're not all incorporated, but they're very close to being incorporated, most of them, or partially. So here's what it would be. If you removed the 14th Amendment or removed incorporation, which Thomas has kind of hinted at with Dobbs, substantive due process, and all this other made up stuff by the courts, you would then have states being able to do what they want. Whether it's the Second Amendment, it may mean I don't have a gun here in California and I move to a state that's a full carry. But then a lot of these,
I am very much okay with that. I am very much okay with that. I am okay. I am very much okay. Well, even with wild expansion of state power to the point where you would have wildly different paradigms where you'd have a California that's super restrictive and another state that's really, free range, right? With a broad amount of issues, right? I am okay with with us branching into a more of a republic fashion. I think that might even help our country, right? Because it allows you, like right now, the option is to get the fuck out of the country, myself over here, versus if I could just go to a different state and have wildly different application of laws in a broader context, even down to, may I say, repealing the federal income tax and just letting people on a state-by-state basis, deal with their taxation and let different states play around with different taxation models, right? In the vein of different countries having different taxation models. Yeah, I think that would be really, really good, right? I think you would see people making those choices with their feet. And this would lead to a lot of movement. We've seen this even with minor stuff with the California versus Texas, because if you really look at the divide between California and Texas, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Tyler, but the last 2 or 3 years are some of the first years that California has shrank instead of grown.
Absolutely. Yes, it is.
I think it's last 2 or 3 years. So that migration is really only over a certain number of issues. It's over taxes, pandemic, and costs maybe. I mean, but there's only 3 issues. If it was over a broader amount of issues that cause people to move from one place to another, particularly businesses, you would see in America that would get more interesting. It would become much more of a melting pot of ideas, a laboratory of policy, right? Where you can see policies that work and don't work. But because we have the federal government restricting that freedom, right, and binding that freedom, we don't have that today.
Someone in here said, got to disagree, Slaughterhouse, what's the reason of the 14th Amendment? The 14th Amendment applies to the states. What the problem is, the privileges and immunities, they said, did not expand. They did not incorporate the amendments to the states from the federal government. So I'm probably not explaining that correctly. But I think it's like a soft divorce in a sense, which is, instead of the Civil War, you just say, we're backing these things off. Now you states get to do what you want to do because we are a very vast country. And, Dobbs, in a sense, has really done that with abortion, in a sense, which is now it's going to be up to the states. We could do this with everything else.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Dobbs, if the Dobbs approach was just applied unilaterally, and it's like, yep, that's our approach now, I'm cool with that, right? I'm absolutely cool with that. That I have zero problem with that. And like you said, if that's the option versus civil war, yeah, I take that over civil war, right? And even national divorce, we can stay together, right? The states can stay together, right? Everything can be fine and dandy. With under that rubric, because you're allowed to do what you want to do. We're not telling you what you can't do or can't do. You just do what you're going to do, and we're going to back off and take a Dobbs approach to it. Now there are certain lines, right? I do think that speech and to a certain extent, the Second Amendment would need to be preserved, right? But that said, if they want to make it, if a state wanted to make it more restrictive, there would definitely be states that'd be less restrictive. I mean, we all know what they are, the Texases, the Oklahomas, the, Montana, Wyoming. I mean, it's going to be, you're going to be able to, there's going to be states on the other side of that. Right. And, to a certain extent, if California wants to interpret the Second Amendment in a very restrictive way, let them. I mean, once again, have fun with that, San Francisco and LA. How's that working out for you now?
Yeah, it's completely. Let's do any other SCOTUS things you want to pontificate on. We can do that, but otherwise, I got some.
Up to you. Up to you. We can transition. I just wanted to make sure we hit those because I think it's been a good, in general, just making the remark, it's been a good session for liberty, and I think overall the net has been positive. I'm actually really optimistic, and honestly, to be honest, I'm usually pretty negative, right? And people know I'm overseas, right? Yes, I'm a Florida attorney that's overseas. I'm not a Korean attorney. I lived in Korea. That doesn't make me a Korean attorney. I don't speak Korean, other than annyeonghaseyo. That's about it. I still am very much invested in things becoming better. I want America to become better. I want it to be great. I want to be excited to come back and visit. I don't want to say I don't want to come back, but once every 2-3 years, right? I don't want it. I don't want that. I want to be able to say I'm excited to come back. I'm just not.
Now you were just back in the States not too long ago.
Because my brother had a child and my cousin had a child, right? And I'm like, maybe when there's like 2 kids that I want to go say hello to and know that I exist and stuff like that in their life, and my mother was also she was getting some stuff done, so I wanted to go talk to her. Going to see my family is one thing, and I'll go back for that. But it'd be different if I'm like, man, I want to go to Texas because they've just uncapped everything, and we've now got full open carry or whatever else. We've got really cool stuff we can do in Texas, right? So I'm going to go there to check that out. That's not what I'm seeing right now in terms of desire to go back. But I listen. One thing I did notice was that there is some positivity, and there are people that think that things are heading in the right direction, which is good, and this is helping. This is helping, right? This is definitely
It is. It's I don't know if it's disturbing, but it's the outrage on some of these rulings it's kind of it's mind blowing. Chevron as an example. What I saw there, I think it was Bette Midler or one of those old. Should I say Hags, complaining about this, and it's like it's just appeal to this authority, right? And you tied it in so perfectly with COVID, of the science and whatnot, and it's my mind doesn't work that way, right? We deal with stuff in our own family, we take care of things, we're kind of we have chickens, we live out in the country, and we're not so I don't have the hubris to think that I can tell other people what to do with their lives, and that's just my mindset. You're probably very similar. So when you see some of these people shoot off like this, the Biden, Missouri, even the social media where the government's controlling, and they think that that's just perfectly fine. It gives me some pause, but you're right. There's a lot of good stuff happening.
So what else do you want to hit on?
Okay, let's. I wanted to go here. Do you mind if I play some of your clip about Hannah Cox?
Do it. Fucking Hannah Cox, the Libertarian of the Year.
Okay, so let me just throw out a few. She has me blocked, we're a mutual block. Robert
great.
Barnes, he has me blocked. We're a mutual.
Blocked by Barnes. You joined the Legion of Tens of Thousands.
Yeah, that happened a long time ago, but there we go. He's quite sensitive. Okay, so I'm going to play this at 1.25. I'm going to play the first 3 minutes because I think it's very interesting. It's a kind of you set it up, and then I have some other parts that we'll jump to. But anytime you want to just jump in and make a comment, please do about yourself.
I always enjoy being sent bad takes on the Disney versus DeSantis issue.
What was that?
This is why I was in Korea. So this is
yeah.
So if you've seen this is a while back. Yeah.
You know, sometimes they can give me insight into another thing I need to explain on YouTube, or something that needs further videos or further illumination, or really something that I can just go into further detail. Some make me laugh, and some are a bit of both. So today's article is one that rose up there. It was especially dumb and bad. And on top of that, it was from a supposedly based libertarian. Oh no, they're based. Look at that. We got to counter some based Chads and Stacys. Yeah, we're going to do it today here live on this channel. Of course, this is the Legal Mindset. We teach you to be your own judge. And I'm Andrew Esquire, an actual Florida attorney with actually almost a decade in experience in special districts and local government in Central Florida, particularly all the special districts surrounding Disney
so this is, by the way, pause real
celebration
quick.
planning.
So this was really important because there were so many people that were commenting on this that were not Florida attorneys and knew nothing about Florida law at all. And even Disney's attorneys, which is what I pointed out from the beginning, were DC, New York, and whatever. And my area of law is so fucking niche. It was so niche with at least the first 6 years of my practice were done almost exclusively representing special districts and Universal Studios. Those were my two things I did. In the Universal, there was some general corporate work, but mostly I focused on property, but really like focusing on special districts, bonds, property work. And I thought there's no way, this is such a niche of a niche, that this is going to be something I can segue onto YouTube. YouTube was really meant to be giving my opinion on legal issues, but not really applying my very, very specific niche knowledge. This would just happen to be this topic that I'm like, holy shit, this is my area. It's so random because this Reedy Creek Improvement District is a type of special district formed in a very unique way. And of all the people that knew this area of law, that practiced this area of law, I had the one who done the most research. I'd put in the most time on this. I knew exactly about it because for Universal, I had studied creating an RCID. We actually said, can we do this? Can we petition the legislature? And we came up with the resolution that the amount of palms we would need to grease in 2020, 2021, 2022 to get this thing done was not worth it. It was better to go to the local government and just use what's available under the existing statutes for CDDs, which is community development districts under Chapter 190 of the Florida statutes, or other special districts under Chapter 199, to just use the existing process rather than try to pull a Disney. We did say we could possibly sue over the fact that Disney was treated in a way that was preferential to an extent that was discriminatory. We could sue over that, but we didn't want to piss off the politicians. Now, Disney didn't care about that. Disney said, fuck it. Fuck Florida, fuck Republicans, fuck everybody. We're just going to sue. And they went against the law, they went against the politicians, and ultimately they lost. And I called that, even from back here in Korea, right? I called this years before it happened. Now they've done exactly what I've said. They've taken the L. They've got a settlement agreement. They bent the knee. The RCID, their former Disney district that they controlled, is not coming back. It's totally gone. You know, they're now only the CFTUD, the new DeSantis district. So that everything I called on this from this is almost 2 years ago, came to fruition. And, it's random. It just happened to be in my area of law. This is one of the most random things that's ever happened. But it kind of just shows you, if you stay around on the internet long enough, something something about will come up, Yeah,
we just talked about family law. So
yeah, family law. And even beyond that, Tyler, you're going to get a case where it's a California family law case or a divorce or something like that. And it's going to come up and you're going to be the guy, the moment is going to come where you're the guy, and you just got to be patient.
I joined, it was when Hunter, and I'll bring this back here, but when Hunter Biden was having his issues, the court case out in Texas, I think it was with his custody, I got into Spaces and it blew up. And I was like the only person that really knew what the heck was going on. So that was exactly what, let me see, how am I going to get this? Okay, ready to keep going? We don't have much of this, but you get to watch yourself from Days
Creek, Reunion, all these other folks that were all around Disney. So I know that area, I know the law, and I know this very well. And there is now yet another laughable First Amendment take And I just really wanted to counter it because I think these are the especially toxic takes because they're from people who call themselves on the right or right-ish, even though I'd argue that these people are actually kind of weird milquetoast fence sitters that try to split hairs on issues and kind of take a side for principle without understanding the practical reality or really doing their due diligence to look deeper in the issue and just really confirming what they feel is right. And I think that's what we have today. And I'll tell you a lot of reasons why here as we go forward. So first of all, what am I talking about? What article is particularly bad? It's this article I saw here. And that is this article. Disney is taking Ron DeSantis to court, and they're probably going to win. Now, this is kind of this is posted April 26th, so this is kind of late to me. It's like, okay, are you just discovering?
How's this take holding up?
Well, that's why I'm having you on to back up what you think.
They lost the federal case. They were blown out. They lost immediately. They were dismissed out of the federal case, right? And they were absolutely betting they had to bend the knee and settle the state case, right? So like Hannah just off rip from the title is wrong.
So how does it make you feel? Look, this kind of reverts back to right to Rekieta in a sense as well, which you saw, there was a big riff immediately with Barnes and Viva and everyone else. And I heard you and Kurt and Sean, I think it was, all talking about this. And I heard the takes. What's Nate? He just has a big channel as well. Guys that are doing this and understand, and you're kind of in the weeds, right? One thing I have to do all the time is set expectations for my clients. And if I don't do that, they're going to make wrong decisions, or I'm going to allow them to make wrong decisions. It doesn't make me look good, and it's not proper. So with this in mind, Barnes, and I don't know if he's listened to it or if they're just pontificating, but I thought you guys all set the stage very well for what is the likeliness going to happen in the real world, especially Nate talking about the warrants and stuff. That was, I thought, great information. This has got to make you feel the same way when you see this, and it's like, no, I work here, and you're talking to, anyway, you can expand about that portion, but how does it make you feel now?
Oh, I mean, I feel great being right. Of course, I've been wrong. And let me be very clear, Tyler. I've been wrong. I've called stuff wrong. I've called cases wrong. Absolutely. Right? But, I'm not God. I'm not, Nate jokes around and calls himself the Lawracle or the Oracle or whatever, because he says he's predicted stuff right. Although if you go back and check it, I love Nate. He's my buddy, right? This is me giving my friend ish, but he'll say it in a way like, oh, this person is not going to be guilty on this charge, but like he'll be guilty of other charges. You know what I mean? So it'll be like, all right, Nate, you kind of split the hair there. You give us the obvious, but okay. We'll all make calls. And this is what we've all done, by the way. Yeah. This is what we've all done. And this is why to segue back to our discussion on my channel about the Rekieta stuff, it's so weird because we've done this, and you see me doing this in this video. Other lawyers have done this with other cases. We did this with Rittenhouse, Amber Heard, all these other cases. We gave our prediction based on the facts and based on what we know and based on the evidence and based on what we've seen. And we can revise that as we watch the trial, as we gain new evidence, as we see new facts, right? We can revise our predictions. And I gave this prediction, and I was strong on it. I was solid on it. And it feels good because I never changed it. I never really modified it. The only thing I added on was nuance as the cases were filed, because there was a point where they hadn't filed, the state case hadn't been filed yet. So I added more information on that. I added more information on the public records cases, et cetera, right? But every single prediction was right because I knew they were ultimately not going to win, that the best they would get is a settlement. And I said from day one, settle, negotiate a deal. And they eventually negotiated a deal, and it was frankly a dog shit deal they could have had from Jump Street. They could have had this from Jump Street. In fact, they could have had a better deal from Jump Street because they would have been able to build stuff. Disney, because they decided to fight Florida, was not allowed to build anything in Orlando on their Disney World campus for the pendency of this lawsuit.
Wow.
So because they couldn't get building permits.
Do you think that lawyers were listening to articles like this, or just brazen? I mean,
I think that lawyers were. Well, I think the more important thing is normies were. And the thing is that the problem is that big organizations, particularly people like Disney,
Disney is absolutely influencing, if not directly controlling, the mainstream media. So they get their narrative out. And this happens on so many different topics, Tyler, is that the narrative that gets out is this mainstream corporate or establishment endorsed narrative. And this is the one that was going out there for a while, because remember at this time, and this is one where a lot of people had bad takes initially, because the left hated Ron DeSantis because he's Republican, right? And he, at one point was pro-Trump. But remember, this is when Ron started to run. So the Trump people hated Ron too. So Ron didn't have a lot of support. So I'm out here saying Ron is going to win because of the law. So I was in an area that was so unpopular. And look, I'm not a Ron DeSantis fanboy here. I just said he's going to win because the law's on his side, right? And that was ultimately the right thing. And I am happy to sit in that position time and time again. I have a lot of haters for a lot of different reasons, but I'm perfectly fine being that person that people are not going to like, because I'm trying to interpret things as I know the law. And if I don't know the law, I'll caveat it. Like today with you, when I say, I fully exclaim, hey, family law, not my specialty. Super not comfortable talking about it, because I don't have enough breadth of experience to say, is the judge going to rule in the best interest of this child in this way or not? I can't tell you. I mean, it's probably even hard to tell you from because it's so subjective. It's probably even hard to say, if this was a California case and I was to ask you, Tyler, which way is it going to go? You could probably say you had an inkling, but you couldn't say you probably had a guarantee.
Unless those facts are correct, then I'd have a good idea of how that's going to
go. Okay. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
On the next stuff. Yeah. On the next stuff. Specifically.
Yeah, exactly. I'll just finish this off in case people wonder, but let's just
think about this case. Like, is this the first time you've woken up and you've discovered this? I mean, I'm glad you're waking up, but I hope you actually do your homework before you write a second article and you actually try to speak to people that know what the hell they're talking about. And this is from supposedly Based Politics with Hannah Cox and Brad Palumbo. It's written by Hannah. So female journalist here, the Based ladies, I have opinions on that I've given in the past, but let's just say.
I need to know. So what are those based opinions currently?
Hold on, the base ladies. No, I mean, look, Hannah had some. I mean, I was reading other stuff from Hannah. I mean, she's had some bad takes in general, right? So this was just bad takes. It was just embarrassing to me when I was putting them that she called herself a libertarian, because I think I have actual people in my chat, and I know you do in yours, that are actually genuinely concerned with liberty. But these people want to use the libertarian mantle for a very specific, weird agenda. And it's really odd. And I think that's probably part of the crew that kind of took over for a while pre-Mises Caucus, right? They have a very weird interpretation, but they oftentimes are better at organizing, because the Borg, the collective, are better at that than the individualists, right? The individualists will all butt heads because they all want to have it their own specific individual way. That's how individualism works, right? So the Borg, those people took over for a while, right? And I think Hannah did represent that kind of segment, that chunk of it. But I think most people in my chat, when I say the base Chads and Stacys, I'm talking about the people in my chat, right? Mostly, they're out there actually concerned in liberty, because I know and I hear them talk about it. And we talk about issues that are complicated, that are not easy to solve, that I don't have a policy answer right off the bat, And I think that's key to liberty. And sometimes is you've got to choose individually. That's your choice. And to me, the more we can push onto personal choice and personal decision-making, the better. And I'm comfortable with that. And I know that there's other people that are not grown adults, or they don't feel responsible enough to be able to make decisions, but that's not on me, right? We shouldn't have to cater our entire system of governance, our entire being, to the stupidest among us, right? We shouldn't have to do that. That's not.
But good. That's a lot of you have the school, some sort of union stuff as well, which is you dumb everything down so those advanced kids just get lost, and everything's down to the lowest common denominator. What would you say is your political philosophy, or do you even care to talk about that? I mean, you can't help but talk about politics when it comes to law. It's in a sense, especially the Supreme Court stuff. But what kind of is your mode there?
I mean, I'm a personal liberty loving capitalist, right? I hate communism, and I hate, socialism generally. Although once again, if you want to float to me different ideas, when I was in Korea, right, they had a a private public healthcare system. This is one I just throw out here, right? And it worked. And I'm like, I can sit in my little thing and say, oh no, it didn't work. It worked, and it was good. Now in a society that's largely homogenous,
Yes.
right, with largely similar genetic traits, largely similar health patterns, people that aren't fat as fuck, right, which is a Western problem, right, a huge Western problem. Being fat as fuck, it's not healthy, it's not good for you. You end up depressed, right? You're more easy to control. So I can say, okay, yeah, that little element works there for this type of population, right? Because it's a principle, right? It's a issue. I could say issue by issue by issue. But generally, I'm going to side on the side of personal liberty and capitalism. Those two things I'm going to pretty much choose every single time, right? Every single fucking time, right? Whatever that is, whatever that is, it is, right? Because to be clear, the Libertarian Party for a while has not been that. Right, I mean, especially pre-Mises Caucus, right? I'll give credit where credit's due. The Mises Caucus,
even then, okay, so they took over, but then they lose the prejudice, and I've got all kinds of issues. You don't have to pussyfoot around. You can bash it all you want. Only thing I'm saying is like it's such a vast rainbow. That's a horrible way to say it, but it's vast way of
rainbow,
right? Of thought process in that spectrum that. I don't know. I'm not really caring here. Some people don't like you though. They don't like that you live in Korea. What say you, Andrew?
I have a lot of haters. I mean, look, as an expat, you're going to get a lot of shit, right? That's like a general thing. I mean, I'm very used to that, right? And typically it's from feminists, right? Because they're typically the big thing is for feminists. They'll throw all sorts of nasty stuff at you, right? But once again, my quality of life is better. Right. I am happier. I'm a person whose family is all around the globe. My family I have family right now in Europe. I have family in Africa. I have family in South America, in Central America, the Caribbean, Canada, all over the world, right? Not as many in Asia. I'm like the Asian representative for my family right now. But, I think it's kind of like in my blood, and I've always loved traveling. I've been to 85 countries, I think, at this point. And I always felt like, hey, I really want to, it's something I've wanted to do for a long time, like a life mission. Right. I was like, I want to try to live abroad. I feel like this is something I feel a strong connection with. My ancestors have done it. It's in me. Right. I've got whatever that gene is. Like maybe there's an expat gene. I have that. Right. So it is very, very satisfying to be able to go somewhere where I don't speak the language. I don't do anything. I just carve out your chunk of this. Right. So I had that. I've always had that for a long time. Right. So I said, hey, what works and what's compatible with me? And I've traveled a lot. I've been to Europe. I've been to, parts of Africa. I've been to South America, Central America a lot. Right. But I went over to Asia and I said, I love it. It's clean, safe. They have the right type of immigration policies. They have, there's no personal safety issues. There's no crime issues. Right. And I'm able to run my business online effectively, right? Which is a very important thing. A lot of places don't have a good internet connection. You can't do remote work effectively. I also like I like city with the option to closely go into the countryside very quickly. I like good infrastructure. That does not gel well with South America. South America has very bad infrastructure, right? Relative,
yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I picked Korea because actually during the pandemic, I was going to go to Japan and Japan closed. So I had to go to Korea. I got into Korea. I had a business opportunity there. So I ended up getting in there on a business related visa, stayed there for 3 years, loved it, loved Korean food. Korean women are amazing, right? Super hot, not fat, feminine. So I had a great time there, but Korea is very cold, right? So I explored other countries. Right now I'm in Manila, but I'll be back in Bangkok, Thailand in a while. So I enjoy it. The weather is very similar to Miami, where I'm from, my hometown of Miami, Florida. Right. So I'm down here loving it. Cost is much lower. My apartment in Korea was cheaper than my apartment in Miami. But if I told you the price of my apartment in Bangkok, which had an infinity pool on the 30th floor of an apartment, centralized right next to public transit, you think I was bullshitting. You think I was making it up. Right. And it's no, I can now save a bunch of money. I can now have money for trips, whatever else, and expand my business, which is one of my businesses, helping people come over here to Asia, because it's a daunting task. And I've gotten visas for Japan, for Korea, for Thailand. I know how to deal with Philippines now. Spend a good amount of time here. I'm in Manila right now, dealing with some business. So yeah, no, I just love it over here. It's something that's been really important to me. It's not for everybody. I don't advocate it for everybody. Certainly a lot of people would hate it. If you're married, you have kids, yeah, it's not a great thing to do, but you're a younger guy, you're somebody who works remotely, you're somebody who has a job that can do it. Hey, check it out. Or at the very least, hey, take a trip somewhere, see if you like it. Maybe you'll get a vacation, right? Maybe it'll be like you go somewhere during the winter, right? And it doesn't have to be Asia. I'm a guy, my brother, he speaks fluent Spanish. He teaches salsa and bachata. He likes South America. He loves South America. He's in Colombia. He's in Brazil. He loves it. Hey, that's more power to him. My brother, he's coming to see me. He's actually coming in today. I got to go see him later. He loves it. He understands why I like it here. He gets it. But speaking Spanish fluently, that's more of his thing, right? Because he's a fluent Spanish speaker and he can go out there and just dance and have a good time. And he just likes the Spanish culture, right? I get along with it. I'm more like a picky Asian old man, right? That's me.
Okay. Well, that's my next question. How do you, you're by yourself, you come to a new country, how do you find friends and meet people? Because unless you just like to be online in your apartment all day, which I can't imagine that would be healthy. So.
Yeah, no, it's not healthy. And one of the big problems, it is difficult to meet people. That's why I kind of started what I started with my second channel, Go East Gentlemen, and I'm doing more events, related to that because you do need to come together and meet people. I did a Japan meetup and I got a bunch of guys together that didn't know each other, especially in Korea and Japan. Those countries can be very lonely, very hard to make friends. You need to make friends that are normal and not just talking to, let's say, your girlfriend, because a lot of people go out and get a girlfriend, right? You need to have some friends that are besides that. The problem is, at least in some countries, a lot of people are just English teachers or military, and those people cycle. So if you're somebody who stays, you need to find people that are there longer term, are staying, or not going anywhere. One reason why I moved to Thailand, and it's actually literally one of the prime reasons, not just for the weather, that was one, food is great, cost is lower, but the expat community is insane, and it is so good. It is so great. I have so many friends. It is an international group. I've got an Australian friend, a British, Korean, Canadian, Chinese. Like I know people, Singapore. I know people from all around the world, and we just hang out. We have a good time. And the best thing is, all those people are really committed to personal liberty and happiness, right? All the people that I deal with, their priority is their happiness and them being content people. So they don't deal with negativity. They don't deal with bullshit, right? So I've been able to kind of create that community of friends, right? That I have IRL in real life when I'm not on this, doing this. It's been great. And it is difficult, but you do have to create intention around it. One suggestion is if you like a sport, you like a hobby, go do that, right? Make friends doing that thing. That's a big suggestion.
All right. Did we do it? Is there more topics? I think.
I mean, that's it. That's pretty good. I mean, I didn't expect to give my expat thesis there, but happy to do it. I love it. It's my second channel. It's something I'm really passionate about. And look, if you have an interest in it, you have an interest in Asia, hey, let me know. I'll try to do my best to help you out. My other website is goeastgentleman.com. You can check that out. If you want to book a consultation with me, if you're really serious about it, you can book a consultation with me. We've got trips to Seoul happening in November. I kind of got an on-demand trip to Bangkok that you can request anytime in August or September happening. So if you want to come out to Thailand to do that, check it out. But other than that, try to exercise in your personal life the best you can, the most liberty and happiness. And I find you'll create a better life for yourself. I really do.
Absolutely. And, that's what I try to do with the family law stuff, helping people out. I do have a Substack. I think it's in some of my links. You guys can go there. I wrote some stuff about family law, and I also did a whole show just ripping on Hannah Cox on some family law stuff. So there's a wide variety for you can do. I can find out and all that. Andrew, I appreciate you coming on. Is there, talk about both of your channels, and what do you have coming up that's the big thing that it's going to blow everyone away?
No. I don't do that way. I try to stay on news that's more burning, that's coming out. My channel is a legal news channel. Surprise, surprise. So I try to check what's coming out in the news, which means I'm constantly doing research every single day. There is one thing I'm going to do. This is really weird and odd, and I found this niche in the VTuber industry. So I'm going to come in this, which is these virtual YouTubers. I'm going to write a full contract, because one of the big issues is these Japanese companies are writing these
horrible, unconscionable contracts. I'm going to write through a full management contract. I'm going to do it live. That's going to take me like a very long time. So I'm saving it for a day when I'm focused, when I'm in the zone, and I'm ready to do it. But that's going to happen in the next like maybe 2 weeks. I'm going to do that at some point. So that should be really good. But other than that, stay tuned for my news coverage. I'm obviously going to stay on top of the Rekieta stuff. Obviously, it's slowed down a little bit. We have the August hearing. That's going to come up, the omnibus. There'll be footage that comes out of the body cam. I'll be reviewing that, right? Yes. So we'll be all over that one. So I'll stay tuned on that one. And any other coverage that comes out, I'm going to stay on top of. Just covered Logan Paul and CoffeeZilla. That's an interesting lawsuit. And Sarah Boone. Sarah Boone is the suitcase murderer alleged suitcase murderer. She's going to be convicted, though, for sure. In Orange County, Florida. I'm going to be doing that case. That case is going to go to trial. The judge got tired of her bullshit. She's going pro se to trial. So we're going to cover that one for sure. That one's going to be a great. Oh, shit, it's right. That's going to be a Darrell Brooks style trial. It's going to be fantastic.
Is this like, did you see the Shabusiness lady?
It's pretty bad, but the Shabusiness trial was underwhelming in a way.
Because it was just sentencing, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't that great. It was like Chandler Halderson. That case had a lot of salacious details, like even really salacious details. But the trial itself just wasn't because there wasn't really a lot of pushback with pro se, because they do crazy shit like Darrell Brooks. It becomes interesting. Right? Because you're like, well, what is she going to blurt out and do? Right. And they may have standby counsel and the whole standby counsel versus her and whatever else. It's crazy. In the suitcase, I mean, man. And every time I watch that trial, by the way, guys, anytime we put anything about Sarah Boone, I get demonetized, but I'm still going to do it because it's a fun trial. Even if I didn't make and I think it's ad revenue. I think I still get the super chats, but like, I'm still going to cover it because it's interesting. I mean, that's just fascinating to me.
I'll just say this last one thing. So in California, they say roughly about 80% of people that go through family court at some point are self-represented. Okay. So, it's long stuff. So they make everything with form, whatever. When I first started doing it, I'm like, oh, they don't have an attorney. This is going to be easier. No, it's worse, because an attorney will keep them focused and tell them, no, you can't have, the house, you can't do whatever. And it's much better to have an attorney. But when they're pro se and you're watching it online, it's exciting. So that will be a fun time. All right, Andrew, I really appreciate, once again, this crossover. It was a great time. If you ever need me back, let me know, but I will be contacting you again, because I know there's going to be something to come up. So I'm really glad we finally connected. Everybody go check Legal Mindset out. He's got a huge channel and he's doing great, and we're all proud of him. And if you're going to go overseas, go over to
GoEastGentleman.com.
Right. Yeah. So thank you again, and hang on. We got a weird outro, and then I'll see you later. Thanks.
See you guys.
Okay, I'm leaving now. Bye, guys.
But she's back.
And now.
Chick-fil-A is completely overrated. It's not that good. I prefer Zaxby's. I prefer Popeyes.
Takes a tough man to make a tender forecast, Nick. And I guess that's me. Keep fucking that chicken.
Should I vote for Dick Cheney on the Libertarian Party? Do I have an obligation to vote for Dick Cheney?
I would say so.
Yes.
Did it work for those people?
No, it never does. I mean, these people somehow delude themselves into thinking it might, but it might work for us.
That one dude was like, not a podcast. I can't find it anywhere. And they don't have video.
Oh, yeah, Peter Janke. Yeah.
Yeah, I blocked him.
I'll do it. If he unblocks me, I'll...
He'll buy your shirt if you unblock him, Bert. He's a wigger.
Yeah, nothing cooler than a 49-year-old wigger.
I just started live streaming. Cut me some slack. I'm pretty high tech for a boomer. But anyways,
boomer.